Welcome to The Liberated Life. Get ready to free your mind, body, and spirit in business and pleasure. Now here's your host, Robin Quinn Keene.
Hi, everyone. Robin here. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Liberated Life. I'm about almost 2 years into podcasting now, and usually I have a guest with me. Often I do, and I've really enjoyed having a wide variety of guests. And if you've been listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to do a solo episode today, and this is kind of to memorialize, I suppose, the 1-year anniversary of what I call my purge for peace. I want to give you a little of the backstory, and then I want to tell you about how you can participate with me in this process if it calls to you. Here's my story. Last year on Memorial Day weekend, I headed down to my dad's condo at Seaside, Oregon. My dad's condo is a very special place for us. When he was alive, he bought a fractional share unit in a condominium, and this is where we get to go 4 times a year. So either I go or one of the kids goes, and it's a very special place. On Memorial Day weekend last year, I headed down with my grandson, who was 6 at the time. And on my way down, I reached out to a friend and asked if he was coming because he had indicated that he might like to. And he ended up coming with his daughter, his adult daughter. And then my grandson's mom and stepdad came down, and then they brought some friends with them. And so it ended up being a pretty lively weekend with a lot of friends and family. And it started off pretty well. We had a great time. The weather was beautiful, but there were some odd moments. We'll just leave it at that. There were some weird and odd moments that happened during that weekend that left me feeling, less than good. Some good, some bad, but those were kind of crappy moments. So, okay, we'll just put that to the side. The next thing that happened was I had some of my mastermind and coaching clients come in from various places across the United States. And that was super fun. They came and we had a great week of working together and enjoying the ocean. We had a great time. On Friday, after everyone headed to the airport, I had a few hours before I needed to get in my car and drive home. So I decided to go out for a walking meditation, listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza on my phone, just to kind of unwind from the week. It was a really busy week, and I was feeling kind of stressed, and I had some low level, I wouldn't say anxiety, but just didn't feel great about certain things that had happened over the course of the week. So I went out for this meditation. It was early in the morning. The sun was coming up. So I was walking and I was listening to Dr. Joe, and I was most of the way down to the end of the beach when he said, "Now stop and imagine your future." If you've listened to him, you know what I'm talking about. So I stopped, but I stopped the meditation as well. And I said, actually, no, I don't want to think about my future. I want to think about what just happened this week. As I stood still, facing the ocean, just kind of mentally beginning to review the week and the things that had happened, I heard a voice, very clear, that said, "If you don't bring me peace, you don't get a place." I really stopped at that point and I went, wow, I heard that. And I turned the opposite direction and faced the sun, and I heard it again, a little more distinctly. The voice said, "If you don't bring me peace, you don't get a place at my table." That really stopped me. And it wasn't like God saying to me, "Look, Robin, bring me peace or you don't get a place at my table." It wasn't that. It was more like God saying to me, "Who have you invited to your table? What is stealing your peace? Who or what is stealing your peace?" Now, that was a question that I could consider. I actually got goosebumps. I get them every time I think about it because it was quite the moment. I walked back to the condo and packed up my car, and I had about 5 hours to drive. So I considered it all the way home. And when I got home, I thought, okay, great. I'm going to do a purge for peace. Anything that causes me to feel anxious, makes me feel unhappy, devalued, unappreciated, gives me FOMO, fear of missing out, just makes me feel bad. Those things just need to go because that is not peace. So I began that process on June the 4th, 2021. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this for a week. And then a week turned into two, and two turned into a month, and I still wasn't done. And as time went on, I was still finding things that were um, being offered, opportunities that were coming in. And when I really sat with them, I went, "Ew, I don't like the way that feels. I don't think I want to do that either." I'm sharing this with you because I see this a couple of ways. One is, sure, I've had some people say, well, God or Jesus is the only way to peace. And I get that. And I appreciate that perspective. But I also believe I have a part in it as well. I don't think just because I believe in Jesus that I'm going to live a peaceful life. In fact, that's not what he came to do. So I've never thought that, and I still don't believe it. And it's okay if you do, but I believe my choices have a direct role in how I experience or do not experience peace in my life. So let me just give you a couple of easy examples of what my thought process was. I started looking at, and I'll come back to that in a minute because there's more that I want to say about that. But I started looking, the first thing was, what's on my phone that is causing me to feel anxious or gives me the feeling that I am missing out on something. And I don't know if you saw that app that came out in 2020, I believe, February of 2020, Clubhouse, that you can put on your phone that was designed to create FOMO for people because they did a rollout and you had to be invited in. And then you only could have it if you had an iPhone, no Android to begin with. And it was this kind of self-promotion platform, if you ask me, where, and to be fair, I'm sure some people love it and give and receive a lot of value, but it felt like a self-promotion tool to me where you could host a room and then be the expert in that room and then invite other people to come in your room and share the stage with you and be experts as well and give advice to people that were in your room. Now, that might sound really cool, but it made me crazy. I was getting, even when I turned off notifications, I could still see that I was being invited. Would you like to come in and be a moderator? So-and-so is inviting you to moderate the stage with her or him, or come join us and be an expert on this panel, and on and on and on and on and on it went. And even though I had the notifications off, I would see something come through on my phone if my phone was sitting next to me. And I started to feel like I was really missing something by not being there, but actually I didn't like being there at all. It's not my jam at all. And so I took it off my phone. I deleted that app. That was one of the very first things I did. And then I started looking at other apps on my phone and going, I can either get rid of it altogether or I can simply turn off the notification. And I did get rid of a number of apps and I turned off the notifications on others that I still valued what it was providing, but didn't really need to be looking at it as often as I was being notified. Even the notifications that don't make a noise, but they just flash on your screen. To me, those are almost as bad, especially if you're a visual person, you are looking for that stuff. So anyway, so I got rid of that. And then I started looking at my emails. And this was like step 2 for me. And I made myself a deal. If an email came in and I opened it, I've always kind of had this deal, but this was a little bit different. If an email came in and I opened it, I needed to make a decision if I was going to keep it or unsubscribe. My usual is if I'm going to open it, I read it and I either respond to it, reply to it, or delete it. Like I can't just leave it undone. I'll finish it. But this decision was different. Is it of value to me? Yes or no? Does it give me any sense of anxiety or missing out? Yes or no? If it was a value and it didn't give me anxiety, I kept it. And if it was a value, but it caused me FOMO or anxiety in any way whatsoever, I unsubscribed. So I probably, in the first 2 weeks, I probably unsubscribed from 40 people's emails. And they're my friends. Like I don't just subscribe to random stuff online. I have a lot of friends that are marketing coaches, speakers, authors, all of that. And so I've signed up for their stuff, but then I got off of their stuff, which was really great. So that was the beginning of my purge for peace. And I would say in the first few weeks, I made tremendous progress. The next thing I did was to look at the people in my life. Now that's a harder That's a much harder thing to look at and evaluate. So let me get back to what I started to say when I talked about does belief in Jesus or God give you peace? We all have some level of stress in our lives, no matter what we do. I don't know who you would have to be to not have any stress anywhere in your life. Self-medicated, maybe. I don't really know how you would ever get there. I've never had that experience of like no worries, nothing on my mind, total peace that lasted more than a couple of days, like maybe on a vacation by myself in some remote part of the world where no one could reach me. That's probably about it, but not normally. So I believe we all have some level of stress in our lives. Well, in this space and time, 2022, with everything that has happened with, the pandemic, politics, the global power grab, the financial insecurity, the issues between people with being able to talk about things or not. There's all of this, and that's enough because that's really layered on top of everything that we already felt as stressful. So we have a base layer of stress, and now we add the crazy events of the past 2 years that just seem to be endless. Look over here, look over here. And then we have the extra stuff that we just kind of have at a low level. So we've got a lot that we're mentally and emotionally coping with and dealing with right now. So what I began to see for myself was that if I could release some of these extra things that really there's no need for them to be there. They don't have a significant impact, but they create a level of stress. What if I could just let those things go? What would that be like for me to just let those go so that I can deal with the stress that comes just naturally with being me in my life, with my family members and friends and my community and my obligations? Let's just get rid of anything that I don't have to have. That's how I look at this situation, is how can I get some of the steam out? How can I release some of the pressure and stress by allowing things to go that really do not contribute to my peace, so that I have the capacity to be calm and peaceful, just dealing with the things that I need to deal with. And when I say deal with, that's not a bad deal with. That just means they're a natural part of my life. I just want to be able to be in a really good place for my family. I want to be in a good place for myself. I want to be in a strong, stable, grounded place for my clients and for the people in my community. That's what I want to be. But with all of the external pressure before that I had, and I no longer have, I could do that. But I think where I was experiencing the anxiety was by myself when I was alone, feeling wiped out, feeling tired, sometimes emotional. I'm an Aquarius, if that means anything to you. I'm not that emotional. So that was my quest, was to purge for peace. How could I do that? So the next step that I mentioned was people. Now, I posted on Facebook about this, and I had one client in particular who kind of went missing for a little while. And when I finally reached him, he was like, "Oh, I thought maybe I was part of the problem." So to be clear, I was not purging my clients, although if I'd had any problem clients, I probably would have had a conversation, but that probably would have happened long before. I didn't purge anyone in my family. I love my family, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You have a family, it is your family, and you love everybody. But I want to be able to do that. So I want to be at my best for my family. But I started looking at who around me was contributing to me and bringing me something to the table, and who was just coming to my table and being a freeloader. And I know that might sound harsh, but that's how I really had to look at it, was, what are you bringing to my table? If you're going to come sit here, I'm not here to serve you. Now, I might want to offer to be in service to you, but I don't actually owe you anything. So if you come to my table expecting something, we need to have a conversation, especially if you come empty-handed. That's the metaphor for me. And that's the message that I got. If you don't bring me peace, you don't get a place at my table. So that was the next level for me, the inquiry into who have I invited to sit at my table? And just because I invited somebody 10 years ago doesn't mean that they need to be at my table any longer. So who do I just need to excuse from the table? I had a person with whom I had a rough experience, and I realized I needed to have a conversation with, I'll just say it, with him, a friend who I came to realize wasn't making a contribution at that point. And in fact, I felt like I was being used in that friendship at that time. And so part of my process then was to say, what has happened? What was my part in what had happened? And in investigating that for myself, I thought, what do I need to happen in order to let this person know and let him go if he didn't want to be at my table any longer? And so I created a conversation to have that acknowledged, this is what happened the last time I saw you. And this was my part in creating that situation. And the impact on me was that I really, don't want you at my table any longer. Although if you're interested, here's what it will take to have a seat at my table. Now, that's not an easy conversation to have, but it was a powerful conversation to have. I think that's something that we all could consider is who's at our table and why are they there and what do they bring? And if they aren't bringing anything, then do they really get to stay and take up that precious place at your table? That's a precious place. That's an honor to sit at your table. It is an honor to be seated at your table. It's not to be squandered or thought lightly of. It requires a level of appreciation and acknowledgement and a desire to give something. I don't care if it's a loaf of bread or a salad or a really tasty brownie or helping me clear or helping me bake or helping me clean up the kitchen. I just need something. And it could even be that you're really a great singer and you play us a song or you tell us some really great jokes or great stories, but there needs to be a contribution. I'm not judging the contribution. I'm just saying there needs to be something. So that, and I know I didn't go into great detail, but there is great detail to be had on how I went through this and exactly what I now require for someone to sit at my table. So let's just say a year later, I am still purging for peace. I had a conversation many years ago with my absolutely dear friend, Neil Moore from Simply Music. And I remember sitting in the office with him in Sacramento one morning when I had flown down to do some work with him. And he said to me, Robin, there will always be endless opportunities. The question is, and wisdom is, which ones are for you? Wisdom is knowing which ones are for you. And I think that's what I've been assessing for the past 11 and a half months is now as things come in, I don't automatically say yes. I've cleared enough space that I'm capable of evaluating before I jump into things or just say yes to things. And I get to say to myself, is this person, is this place, is this thing bringing something to my table? And if I'm not sure, then it's a not right now. And if I'm really sure that they don't, from everything I can tell, it's a no, thank you. And through conversation and asking lots of questions, if it feels like a yes, then I will say yes. But I often say no, or sometimes I even renegotiate. So if somebody says in my entrepreneurial world, hey, Robin, I'm going to be doing this really cool workshop. Would you please tell people about it? Could you send out emails for me to your email list? I have said no. I've said mostly no, but I have negotiated and said, hey, I don't want to do that. But how about if I did this? How about if I could do a Facebook Live with you? How about if I interview you on my podcast? So not everything is a straight up no. Some things are just like, yeah, I could do this, but I don't want to be obligated to do that. So I'm interested in equitable exchanges, and I'm interested in doing things that feel good, don't cause me fear or anxiety, don't make me feel like I'm missing out, don't make me feel like I'm committed to something that I might not want to do. And then also being able to say to someone who I've already committed to do something with, to be able to go back and say, I'm not going to, or to renegotiate. And that's part of what the work I do in the quitting culture as well. It's all about really being able to identify and intentionally and accountably quit things that you've said yes to that you know are no longer for you. So there you have it in a nutshell. Maybe that wasn't very short, but it is a nutshell, kind of a distilled down version of my Purge for Peace. Now, if this is something that you would like to do with me, I am very much considering doing a 5-day challenge around one aspect of purging for peace. And I am also very likely creating a new community off of Facebook for people that are interested in doing this kind of work, doing this kind of up level. I'm going to be starting a new community off of Facebook, and I will be working on these kinds of concepts with people about doing some refining in their own lives so that they can live with more peace and more joy and less anxiety and less obligation. I can tell you, for me, this past year has been a game changer. And I feel much calmer. I'm not an anxious person. I don't consider myself anxious in any way, but I clearly had some anxiety and fear of missing out going on because it's gone now. And I feel like I've got this runway. That's how I see it. In fact, as I look out my sliding glass door, I can see to the end of my deck, and then I can see to the end of the meadow, and then I can see the next 10 acres, then I can see further beyond that, and then I can see the mountains. What I've told people is a year ago, everything was so close, I couldn't even see past the end of my own deck. I just had so much going on and so much pressure. And then, I cleared the deck, and then I cleared the first meadow, and then I opened up that second meadow, and now it's clear all the way to the tree. So as things come in, I have an ability to evaluate in a way that I couldn't last year when everything was so pressing and so close and so stressful. And now I feel very calm, and my no's are no's and my yeses are yeses, because I know what I'm saying yes to has to be aligned with what I'm up to. And anything that doesn't is a no. I don't care what it is. I don't care how it's dressed, how it's packaged, how sharp it looks, how perfect it seems. If it doesn't bring me peace, it doesn't get a place at my table. If you would like to know more about this, please send me a note. Please reach out to me, robin@quittingculture.com. You can find that in the show notes. You can find me on Facebook, Robin Quinn Keene. Just reach out so I know that you're interested. At some point soon, I will have an official place where you can go sign up to do the Purge for Peace when I figured that out a little further. Thanks so much for listening. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have any questions, if this kind of information is helpful for you, if you want to chat, please just reach out to me. Have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can also get more great information at quittingculture.com.